The Desperate Alliance. The Kylorian sky burned crimson above Outpost Helios as another volley of swarm torpedoes crashed against the failing energy shields. Commander Ishara Vixtal gripped the command console with all 6 of her slender blue fingers, her crystalline eyes flickering with the reflection of warning signals that filled every screen in the command center. Shield integrity at 12%, reported Lieutenant Zoran, his segmented exoskeleton clicking nervously as he worked. 2 more volleys, Commander. That's all we can withstand. Ishara nodded grimly. After 37 days under siege, Outpost Helios, once the proudest military installation in the Galactic Coalition's outer rim, was hours from falling. With it would go the Kylorian system, then the entire Vega sector. The swarm had proven unstoppable, their hive mind tactics overwhelming even the most sophisticated defensive algorithms the Coalition possessed. Status of evacuation? Ishara asked, though she already knew the answer. 18% of non-military personnel safely away, Zoran replied. The civilian transport pad was hit in the last bombardment. No further evacuations are possible. Outside the reinforced windows of the command center, distant explosions lit up the horizon as swarm ground forces pushed relentlessly toward the outpost. The perfect synchronization of their movements was terrifying to behold. Millions of entities functioning as a single organism, adapting instantly to any defensive strategy. General Thax's final communication confirmed no reinforcements are coming, said Captain Nilara, the reptilian tactical officer. Her scaled skin had dulled from its usual vibrant green to a sickly gray, a stress response common to her species. We are officially considered expendable. Ishara closed her eyes briefly. 10,000 Coalition personnel from 17 species now depended on her for their final orders. Protocol dictated activation of the Omega contingency, self-destruction, rather than allowing the swarm to assimilate their consciousness. The silence in the command center was broken by a sudden alert from the long-range sensor station. Commander called out Ensign Pax, his bioluminescent appendages pulsing with excitement. Unidentified vessels entering the system at high velocity. Swarm reinforcements, Ishara demanded, moving swiftly to the sensor display. Negative. Configuration unknown. No match in Coalition or Swarm databases. The command center erupted with activity as officers scrambled to assess this new development. The main view screen activated, displaying a fleet of sleek, gunmetal gray vessels cutting through space toward Kyloria. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, reported the communications officer. A crackle of static filled the room, then resolved into a clear, confident voice. This is Captain Marcus Reed of the United Earth Defense Force. Heard you folks could use some backup. Request landing coordinates for 5,000 combat-ready personnel. Stunned silence fell over the command center. Every officer turned to Ishara, whose expression had frozen in disbelief. Earth, Lieutenant Zoran whispered. That pre-FTL civilization from the restricted zone. Apparently not so pre-FTL anymore, Nilara observed, her scales regaining some color. Ishara composed herself quickly. Open channel. Captain Reed, this is Commander Ishara Vixtal of the Galactic Coalition. Your assistance is unexpected but welcome. However, I should warn you that our situation is dire. The swarm outnumbers us 50-1 with superior weaponry. A low chuckle came through the speakers. Numbers aren't everything, Commander. We've been observing your conflict for some time. The swarm's got a weakness. We intend to exploit it. Within hours, the command center had been transformed. Human officers in dark blue uniforms moved with surprising efficiency among the Coalition staff. Captain Marcus Reed, a compact, copper-skinned man with alert eyes and a stern expression, stood before a holographic display of the outpost, studying the terrain with intense focus. Your defense strategy is too predictable, Reed explained to the assembled Coalition officers. The swarm assimilates patterns. Every time you establish a defensive line, they analyze and counter it within minutes. Our tactical algorithms are the most advanced in the quadrant, Naylor objected, her tail twitching with irritation. That's exactly the problem, Reed replied. You're fighting like machines, logically, mathematically. The swarm excels at countering that approach. He gestured to the human officers surrounding him. We fight dirty. The coalition officers exchanged uncomfortable glances as Reed outlined his plan. It violated every principle of modern combat doctrine. Instead of a unified defensive perimeter, the human captain proposed scattered, asymmetric positions. Some troops would be deliberately exposed while others remained hidden in unlikely locations. This is madness, Zoran protested. You're dispersing our forces into vulnerable pockets. Reed's weathered face broke into a sudden grin. Exactly. Because vulnerable is the last thing they'll be. As dawn broke over Kyloria, the horizon darkened with approaching swarm forces, a perfect wave of gleaming black carapaces advancing with terrifying precision. In the command center, Ishera watched through drone feeds as the human soldiers took their seemingly illogical positions. Some perched on rooftops, others buried themselves in rubble piles. All units hold position, Reed commanded through his wrist communicator. Fire only on my mark. The swarm hit the outer perimeter sensors. 3 minutes to contact. Now would be an appropriate time for whatever miracle you promised, Captain, Ishera said quietly. Reed's scared face broke into that predatory smile again. Patience, Commander. He tapped his communicator. Phantom Squad, you are weapons free. Happy hunting. 2 minutes to contact. Suddenly, across the swarm front line, the towering sync nodes, specialized drones that served as local coordination centers for the hive mind, began to fall, their bulbous heads exploding in sprays of viscous fluid. Sniper fire, Naylor whispered in disbelief. Perfectly synchronized despite coming from widely separated positions. The advancing swarm faltered, the hive mind momentarily struggling to reroute command functions. In that critical moment of hesitation, the human strategy revealed itself. All units execute Chaos Protocol, Reed ordered. The battlefield erupted. Hidden human squads emerged from concealment, targeting weak points the coalition forces hadn't even identified. They employed weapons that seemed tailored to disrupt hive coordination, sonic disruptors that confused the swarm's vibrational communications, smoke grenades laced with chemicals that interfered with pheromone signaling. Most confounding of all was their movement pattern. Where coalition forces fought with mathematical precision, the humans operated in what appeared to be complete disorder. 3-person teams would split without warning, regroup in different configurations, retreat only to circle back from unexpected angles. They're not following any recognizable combat algorithm, Zoran said, his voice rising in pitch as he struggled to process what he was seeing. It's like each human is fighting their own individual battle, yet somehow producing coordinated effects. The communications officer suddenly straightened. Commander, I've intercepted swarm command transmissions. Translate, Ishera ordered. The officer's voice changed, mimicking the clicking cadence of swarm speech. Unknown species does not follow combat prediction models. Cannot anticipate movement patterns. Major coordination disruption in sectors 7 through 12. Request immediate reinforcement. For the first time in 37 days of siege, the horizon showed a remarkable sight. Swarm forces in retreat. By nightfall, the coalition command center buzzed with stunned excitement. Captain Reed found Commander Ishera on an observation platform, watching with curiosity as human soldiers gathered around small fires in their forward positions. Your people should be resting, preparing for the counterattack that will surely come, Ishera noted. Reed nodded toward the fires, where soldiers passed containers of amber liquid, singing songs and sharing tales. They are preparing, Commander, just not in any way you recognize. The counterattack. The coalition medical bay, typically a model of sterile efficiency, had transformed into organized chaos after the battle. Casualties were mercifully lower than expected, but the influx of human wounded presented unprecedented challenges for the medical staff. Dr. Felix, the Meridian Chief Medical Officer, found himself fascinated by human physiology. Their bodies contained redundant systems, unusual damage response mechanisms, and regenerative capabilities that defied their supposedly primitive classification. He approached a gurney where a heavily muscled human female lay with shrapnel wounds across her torso. The soldier's identification tab read Vasquez E. Lieutenant. Blood type AB+. Your species heals quite efficiently, Dr. Felix observed as he applied regenerative gel to her wounds. Much faster than our statistical models would predict for your technology level. Lieutenant Vasquez laughed, then winced at the pain it caused. Doc, we've had lots of practice getting patched up. Practice. The Meridian's cranial ridges pulsed with curiosity. Your species evolved toward cooperation, right? Stopped fighting each other once you achieved civilization. Vasquez studied the doctor's intricate exoskeletal plates that shimmered with bioluminescent medical data. We never stopped. We've been killing each other since we crawled out of the mud. Every weapon, every tactic, every counter-tactic refined through thousands of years of practice. Commander Ishara, entering the medical bay to check on casualties, overheard the exchange and approached the gurney. You're suggesting that violence is evolutionarily advantageous for humans. Vasquez shrugged, then grimaced at the movement. Natural selection, Commander. Those who survived combat passed on their genes. Those who were good at combat protected more of their tribe, which meant more of their genes in the next generation. We've been upgrading ourselves through war for longer than we've had written language. Dr. Felix's ridges pulsed with alarm. Your species intentionally continued warfare for genetic improvement. That's barbaric. Not intentional, Vasquez corrected. Just how it worked out. We didn't choose this path, but it made us what we are. Ishara studied the injured human with new understanding. You're not primitive. You're specialized. Bingo, Vasquez said, pointing a finger at Ishara. While your ancestors were figuring out how to avoid fighting, mine were figuring out how to win fights. Different evolutionary paths. Across the room, Captain Reed entered with a data tablet, his expression grim. He spotted Ishara and made his way through the medical bay. Commander, we need to talk, Reed said, his voice low. My intelligence team has been analyzing swarm communication patterns. We found something concerning. He handed Ishara the tablet displaying complex signal analysis. They're afraid of us, specifically not just our tactics, but humans as a species. These transmission fragments suggest they've encountered humans before. Ishara's inner eyelids flickered in surprise. That's impossible. Earth was in a restricted zone. The swarm shouldn't even know you exist. Well, they do. Reed's face hardened. And there's something else. He tapped the tablet, bringing up a schematic of the primary swarm carrier. We think they're holding human prisoners aboard, and we intend to get them back. Ishara stared at the massive carrier schematic, then back at Reed. That would be suicide. Reed's lips curved into that now familiar predatory smile. Only if you're thinking logically, Commander. And that's exactly what they're counting on. The mission briefing in the Coalition Command Center left the gathered officers in stunned silence. Major Sophia Reeves, a wiry woman with close-cropped silver hair and eyes like polished steel, stood before the holographic display of the swarm carrier. Operation Achilles, Reeves announced, her voice crisp and authoritative. Objective: infiltrate the primary swarm carrier, plant electromagnetic pulse devices at the central neural node, and extract any human prisoners. Commander Ishara studied the tactical display, her inner lids narrowing. The statistical probability of success is approximately 0.026%, and that's being generous. Reeves' laugh was unexpected, a sharp, barking sound completely at odds with the grim mission parameters she had just outlined. If we operated on statistics, Commander, humanity would have gone extinct a long time ago. Captain Reed stepped forward, highlighting sections of the carrier schematic. The swarm relies on predictability. Their entire society is built on it. So we're going to do exactly what they can't predict. He gestured to the small strike team assembled behind him. 12 humans of diverse backgrounds, each with specializations listed in their personnel files that made little sense to the coalition officers. Chaos engineer, tactical improviser, psychological warfare specialist. The strike team would use a captured swarm shuttle, along with biological camouflage derived from slain drones, to penetrate the carrier's outer defenses. Once inside, they would move in patterns specifically designed to create cognitive dissonance in the telepathically linked enemy. Randomized movements, contradictory actions, behaviors that would overload the hive mind's processing capacity. This isn't just about saving our people, Reed explained. It's about proving a point. The swarm believes they can predict and counter any strategy. We're going to show them something they've never seen before: human chaos. Ishara listened with growing fascination. The plan was brilliant in its insanity, so completely contrary to established military doctrine that it just might work. "I'm going with you," she announced suddenly. Reed's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Commander, with all due respect, this is still coalition jurisdiction, Captain," Ishara interrupted. "And I need to see firsthand how your species operates." 24 hours later, Commander Ishara found herself aboard the captured swarm shuttle, coated in the viscous biological camouflage that would mask her life signs from the carrier sensors. Beside her, Lieutenant Vasquez, now recovered enough for limited duty, checked the pulse rifle she'd been issued. "First time infiltrating the swarm ship?" Vasquez asked with a grin. "First time everything about this mission," Ishara admitted. The shuttle approached the massive carrier, a structure the size of a small moon, its surface bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. By all rights, they should have been detected and vaporized immediately. Instead, the carrier's automated docking systems recognized the shuttle's swarm signature and guided them into a secondary hangar bay. "Remember," Reed whispered as they prepared to disembark, "move erratically. Do the unexpected. Think irrationally. That's our camouflage once we're inside." The strike team split into 3 groups, each taking different routes toward the central neural node. Ishara found herself with Reed, Vasquez, and a demolition specialist named Kowalski, a mountain of a man who moved with surprising grace for his size. The interior of the carrier was nightmarish. Organic technology melded with mechanical components, pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence. Swarm drones moved through the corridors with mechanical precision, completely ignoring the infiltrators thanks to their biological disguise. "Their neural network is experiencing cognitive dissonance," Reed explained as they moved deeper into the ship. "Our presence registers, but doesn't match any known threat pattern, so we're filtered out as background noise." They reached a vast chamber filled with processing pods, transparent cylinders containing various alien species, their nervous systems wired directly into the ship's systems. "Gods," Ishara whispered, horrified. "They're being used as biological processors." Vasquez pointed to a section at the far end of the chamber. "Humans. At least 20 of them." Reed's expression hardened. "Extraction team, move in. Demo team, prepare the EMP devices." What followed was the most chaotic 30 minutes of Ishara's military career. As the teams moved to their objectives, Reed deliberately triggered an alarm in a distant section of the ship. Swarm drones rushed to respond, their hive minds suddenly alert to intrusion, but unable to pinpoint the actual threat. The confusion was magnified as other human teams implemented their part of the plan, releasing contradictory pheromones, broadcasting conflicting signals, creating a sensory overload that the hive mind couldn't process. As Kowalski planted the final EMP device, a security breach alarm blared through the chamber. Swarm drones began pouring in from multiple entrances, their movements growing increasingly erratic as the hive mind struggled to coordinate a response to the unpredictable human movement patterns. "Time to go," Reed shouted, firing his pulse rifle at the nearest group of drones. The extraction team had freed 15 human prisoners, emaciated but alive. As they fought their way back toward the hangar bay, Ishara witnessed humanity's combat specialization firsthand. Each soldier adapted instantly to changing threats, no two using the same tactics. Where coalition forces would have maintained formation and fought according to established protocols, these humans embraced the chaos, using it as a weapon. EMP devices activated, Kowalski reported as they reached the shuttle. "We've got 3 minutes before this whole section goes dark." The shuttle launched just as the first EMP wave rippled through the carrier. Behind them, sections of the massive ship began to go dark, the hive mind's control faltering as its neural network crashed. In the aftermath, as the coalition fleet moved in to mop up the now disorganized swarm forces, Ishara found Reed on the observation deck of Outpost Helios, watching as the carrier drifted powerless in orbit. "Your tactics defy all logical analysis," she said. Reed smiled, not the predatory grin of battle, but something warmer. "That's humanity's greatest strength, Commander. We're predictably unpredictable." "The Coalition Council will want to meet with your leaders," Ishara continued. "This victory changes everything. The swarm has never been defeated so decisively." "I look forward to the discussions," Reed replied. "But fair warning, diplomacy isn't always our strong suit." Ishara's crystalline eyes caught the light as she turned to face him fully. "Perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. For too long, we fought our enemies on their terms, using logic and order against a logical, ordered foe. You've shown us another way." As the sun set over Kyloria, human and coalition personnel worked side by side, rebuilding what had been destroyed. The galaxy had changed irrevocably. Humanity had arrived, chaotic, unpredictable, specialized through millennia of conflict, and nothing would ever be the same again. The swarm had thought humanity was extinct, or perhaps never even encountered them before. Either way, they had been unprepared for what humans brought to the battlefield. Now, as word spread through coalition space of the victory at Outpost Helios, other species began to wonder, what other surprises did these newcomers have in store? One thing was certain, the age of predictable warfare was over. The human era had begun.